All right, welcome. We're going to get started now. My name is Selena, and this is a meditation and journaling workshop I call an unprecedented year. We're sitting here currently in March 2021, which is the first anniversary of a year unlike any other. And so over the course of this 2-hour workshop, we're going to weave meditation and journaling together. And at the end of the session, we'll have some discussion, a little bit of conversation about whatever feels right towards the end of our time together. And if you're watching this recording, that part won't be shared. In fact, I'll be editing it down for the privacy. As I said, my name is Selena. I am a teacher owner at The Connective, and you can find me via Pramana Wellness. I'm currently residing on the unceded territory of the Munsee Lenape people here in New York. And I invite you to consider your space and time, just taking a moment to reflect on where you happen to be. And as we go through the prompts and the meditations over this time together, you may find yourself taken to other places and other times. And so in order to get ourselves rooted right where we are, let's begin with a brief arriving meditation. So if you have your journal, you can set it to the side just for a moment and just get comfortable. If you prefer to turn off your video, you can do that. Otherwise, you can stay on with me. And so getting comfortable, closing your eyes if that feels safe. Otherwise, just taking the gaze down. And beginning by feeling the places where your body is in contact with the chair, the floor, wherever you happen to be seated. Feeling those pressure points that let you know that you are physically in this space right now. And also beginning to bring your attention to your breath. Just noticing where your breath feels most obvious right now. Whether that be the sensation of air moving in and out of the nose, or a rise and fall of the chest, expansion and contraction of the belly, wherever feels most obvious to you is just fine. And just taking a moment to note that as you watch your breath, it might begin to shift. And even though our attention inevitably can impact our breath will always do its thing when we're not paying attention. In other words, our breath knows how to breathe itself and keep us going and keep us here. And so as we work together throughout this workshop, breathing in and out of meditations and writing and remembering, if at any time it feels like a bit too much, I invite you to come back to this home base right here, right now. One breath at a time, feeling yourself physically in this space where you are seated in the present. And watching your breath for a couple more rounds of inhales and exhales. Noticing any shifts that may have already occurred in that process. if your breath feels deep or shallow, slow or fast. If it feels like the movement has gotten larger or more pinpoint, or if it's stayed roughly the same, just noticing. And finally, if your eyes are closed, maybe gently tilting your head down slightly. And before we open the eyes, taking the attention once more to those pressure points of where your body meets your seat, your cushion, your bed, your chair, wherever you happen to be, whatever is supporting you. And when you're ready, you can slowly begin to flutter the eyes open. And find your way to your journal. Go ahead and taking your journal, we'll begin now with our first prompt. Taking a moment to jot down anything that comes to mind when you think about the present, where you are right now. We'll just take a couple of minutes to jot down how you would describe where you happen to be physically in space right now. And whatever comes up for you as you think about that. Have you been in this space this whole year? If not, when did you arrive in it? How does it feel to be where you happen to be seated right now? Not just physically, but also, does it feel like a place of safety? So just taking a minute and a half or so to write down all that comes to mind about the present, where you happen to be in space and time right now. And taking just a few more moments to finish up any words or phrases that you happen to be on. And then setting your journal aside for a moment so that we can drop back in. And we're going to begin our journey. Now that we have found our home base, where we happen to be, knowing that we can come back to this at any breath in any moment, we're going to turn inward now. So if you haven't already done so, getting cozy, closing the eyes, if that feels safe, finding your breath again. And we'll begin to take a little journey through time. So feeling your breath, noticing in your body any residual effects of that brief free write, any emotions that came up that have residue left in the body. And we're going to go a little bit more than just a year back. We're going to start with the start of 2020. So, new year. Do you remember where you were for New Year's Eve as we began to move into a new decade, complete a decade, as we began to welcome 2020? Do you remember where you were, who you were with, how you were celebrating? Can you recall what emotions you had surrounding the start of 2020? If the idea of clear vision resonated with you then. Breathing here now and recalling your hopes for the new year, the start of 2020. If there were any resolutions or goals, things that mattered to you as we began that year. Do you recall those with whom you wanted to spend your time? How you wanted to spend your time? What you were looking forward to doing? Who you were looking forward to being as 2020 began? And without rushing it forward, at the bottom of your next exhale, take a deep breath in. As you exhale, release. We'll take 2 more. Inhale, feel yourself coming back into this space in this moment. As you exhale, release through the mouth, your exhale. Take 1 more breath in, slow and steady, perhaps in through the nose, and exhale with a sigh. Notice what loosens, what softens, and when you're ready, you can take your time to flutter your eyes open and find your journal again. This time, as you pick up your journal, take a few minutes to jot down anything and everything that came to mind when you thought about the start of 2020, how you began that new year, what you hoped for. So anything that came up for you as we were breathing through that visualization, and anything that comes up now. So we'll take a few minutes to do that. about 3 more minutes to write down any and everything that you think of, anything that comes to mind as you think about your hopes and expectations for 2020. I'm just taking about a half a minute now to finish whatever words or phrases that you're on. No rush. When you get to the end of those sentences or phrases or sketches, I invite you to set your journal aside again and we'll drop back in. Take your time. So settling now back into the body through the present, closing the eyes and finding the breath. Noticing first where the breath feels most obvious and any changes to the breath from the last time you paid attention to it, if it's shifted in the last few minutes. And then again, surveying the body to note any residual effects of your thoughts and emotions in the body, any places of warmth or tightening or other physical sensations. Just noticing those now. And continuing to breathe, we'll drop back into that place in the past. As you begin to come back to this idea of what you were hoping for 2020, we'll let that go as we begin to recall what did happen. Starting with the first days of the year. Do you remember where you were in January? How did the year begin for you? If you had any resolutions, do you remember how those first few weeks went as you worked towards them? Were there any events of note in the month of January of 2020? Any birthdays that you know, or any places that you visited that winter? And as the weeks rolled into February, what stands out for you about February of 2020? By then, we'd begun to hear news stories here and there, still not as consistent as they would become, about the existence of this contagious illness. And so, what was the rhythm of your life before those news stories became anything more than just news stories? Do you remember how you spent your days, the pace of your home and work life in February of 2020? We'll take 3 breaths together to come back to here and now. So, taking a deep breath in through the nose. And this time we'll breathe out through the nose, slow and steady. Then in again through the nose. We'll separate the lips and allow the breath to silently escape through the mouth first. Steady and controlled. And then take one more deep breath in, and this time exhale with a sigh and find full release. And when you're ready, you can flutter your eyes open and find your journal again. Taking a few minutes to just write down everything that you remembered, everything you recall about January and February of 2020. Taking about another minute or so now, just to write down everything that comes to mind. Complete sentences are okay, but so are words or phrases, poetry or sketches. And just a little bit longer now to get it all out onto paper. So, setting your journal aside now and coming back in, coming back to the breath, coming back to this moment, to the present, to this body, in this space, with these breaths now. Closing the eyes again, finding the breath again. Noticing if the place where it feels most obvious is different than it was before. Noticing any shifts in the breath itself, if it feels any slower or deeper or more shallow. Just noticing if it feels exactly the same. And then allowing your vision, mental vision, to expand, to survey the body for other sensations, perhaps anything that's left over from that writing, from those memories. Take a deep breath here. Exhale with a sigh. See if anything loosens up. And now letting the breath be and do its own thing. Now let's go back again. As we continue to progress through the year, let's pause in March of 2020. For so many of us, Friday the 13th of March 2020 was a day when things really began to change. But maybe that's not the case for you. So whatever date things began to change for you, whether you know that date exactly or not, can you recall when the news of this distant illness suddenly didn't feel so distant? When that thing that was happening somewhere else became something that impacted you? Do you recall how your life was first impacted by this news, by the changing world, by the restrictions and uncertainty? What were the first signs for you that this was something that was going to impact you? Do you recall what emotions you had surrounding this time? Were there people with whom you spoke? Maybe people you shared the news with, or who shared news with you, or people with whom you discussed your thoughts or your fears, your hopes. How did it all start for you? We'll take 3 breaths together now to come back to the present, here, right now, in this space and this time. So at the bottom of your next exhale, let's inhale through the nose, slow and steady and controlled, and exhale through the nose, slow and steady and controlled. Again, inhale this time, slow and steady through the nose, and separate the lips and allow the breath to silently escape through the mouth, steady and full. Then inhale through the nose, and this time go ahead and exhale with a sigh. Notice what loosens. And when you're ready, you can begin to open the eyes and find your journal again. we'll take a few minutes now to write down any and everything that came to mind and anything else that comes to mind as you just think about that point of change when everything began to shift. Where you were, who you were with, the conversations that you had, the thoughts and emotions that were with you. Take a few minutes now. And again, if at any point you need to pause from it, you're welcome to drop back into the breath, maybe even step away for a moment, take a sip of water or tea, and then come back. So anything that comes to mind now as you think about last March 2020. Taking about another 2 minutes now. And finishing up any final words or phrases that are coming to mind right now. Setting your journal aside, maybe taking a sip of water if you haven't done so yet. And then we'll drop back in through the present moment, this body in this space at this time. Finding the breath again, noting any changes or shifts, seeing if, like a detective, you can identify any residual emotion echoing through the body. Take a deep breath in. Exhale with a sigh. And then just let the breath breathe itself. And now as we continue, we'll move at a different rate, a little different pace. Rather than going month by month, we're going to shift seasonally. As we think about the rest of the spring, we were by the point of spring, the spring equinox, fully immersed in this unprecedented time. And so the sense of renewal and hope that usually comes with the season, for so many of us, was replaced by uncertainty. Taking a moment to breathe here and recalling, how did uncertainty impact you? To what extent did not knowing impact your thoughts, your emotions, your plans for the spring? As March became April and April became May, when you think back on last spring, what stands out for you? Do you recall the people that you spoke with? Either anyone you were physically in space with, or shifting to new modalities of communication. How did your professional and personal lives and livelihoods begin to shift last spring? Were there specific events that were canceled or unfulfilled or radically altered? And while it's so easy, almost natural, to think about that which maybe was lost, what was born for you last spring? Were there any new things that began last April or May? Opportunities that arose, maybe that were always there, maybe as a result of the shifting landscape of our lives. Were there any new skills that you were challenged to acquire? New people that you came into contact with because of a shift in modalities? New activities or roles that were born out of the time of uncertainty? Or did those first few months feel more like something else? And before we shift to right, let's come back slowly by coming back physically to the breath, to the body. So we'll take that trio of breaths together when you're ready. And at the bottom of your next exhale, let's begin by inhaling through the nose, slow and steady. Exhale fully and completely through the nose. Again, in through the nose. Then separating the lips and slowly and silently allowing the breath to escape through the mouth. Then in again through the nose, and this time letting go of control as you exhale with a sigh. And when you are ready to flutter the eyes open, making your way back again to your journal, to take a few minutes to write about anything that came up as you thought about last spring, or anything that comes up now as you free write with that prompt. What shifted? Were there opportunities that were born? What did the spring feel like for you? Were there events that stand out to you? Writing any and all of it now. About another 2 minutes or so to write about the spring of 2020. And taking just a little bit of time now to finish up any words or phrases that you're on. Setting your journal aside when you're ready. And coming back now to the body, to the breath. If you haven't had a moment yet to take a little bit of a physical break, maybe moving, if you're seated, maybe standing up, shaking things off and sitting back down, or just shifting in your seat a bit. We're approaching the halfway point of our time together, so it's a good moment to just readjust. Make sure you're comfortable and hydrated. Make sure you have what you need. And when you're ready and as you're ready, we'll come back now to the body and the breath right here in this moment in time. So when you're ready, closing the eyes again and settling the attention once more on the breath. Identifying where the breath feels most obvious and all the shifts that the breath may have undergone over the duration of this last hour. How it feels right now, where it feels most obvious right now, and the qualities of that breath. If it's pace, if it's depth, have shifted. If the breath feels controlled or free. And noticing now if there are any residual effects of the last bit of writing, the last round of memories and thoughts. If there's any tightness in any part of the body or any warmth or sensation that might be a place where your thoughts and emotions are being manifested in the body physically. And if you have found any such places, then let's take one breath in together to identify them. Then exhale with a sigh and see if anything releases. Allow the breath to breathe itself. And now let's go back again, this time to last summer. For so many of us, summer has a very specific flavor and sensation, almost like a texture of its own, an emotional tone most of the time. What was last summer like for you? Was the rhythm of your days different than a usual summer? And how did the requirements of social distancing impact the kind of summer that you had? In what ways did your work and your work schedule feel different than a regular summer? Maybe recalling any key events of June, July, or August. Events that either were born of this unique time, events that were unable to happen, events that were transformed. Were there people whom you met or stayed in contact with, relationships that shifted in June, July, or August? Were there opportunities that arose last summer, either as a result of months and years of work or opportunities that were unique to this time, that could only have arisen because of the constraints surrounding the global pandemic? How did you experience the season itself in terms of nature, the heat of summer, the angles of the sun, and the ways that nature continued? Did you take time that still sits with your memory to connect in any way with nature itself? And remembering now that we too are elements of nature, that we are part of this natural world, heartbeats in the universe, let's come back to our body right here in this space, in this time. And so with the eyes closed, we'll take that trio of breaths together again now. When you're ready, and at the bottom of your next exhale, let's take a slow, steady breath in through the nose, and a slow, steady exhale through the nose. Another slow, deep inhale through the nose, and a steady and easeful breath out through the mouth, silent and controlled, squeezing all the air out. One more inhale through the nose, and exhale with a sigh, completely free. Notice if anything shifts. Maybe rubbing the hands together or on the legs and making yourself feel present right here and right now. When you're ready, you can flutter the eyes open and find your way again to your journal. As you take a few minutes now to write about last summer, all the things that stood out to you, or just free writing now with that idea, remembering the summer of 2020. And taking about another minute or so now. And when you're ready, finishing up any words or phrases that you're on and settling back into the body, coming back to right now. As you find your way back to yourself and your breath, noticing first the physical sensations of breathing here in this space right now, noticing any shifts, and then taking a moment to identify any emotions that are taking up space as physical sensations in the body. And taking a deep breath in, exhaling with a sigh. See if anything loosens up. And we'll go back now into a season of transition, recalling what it was like to shift from summer into fall, still in this world of uncertainty. What was it like for you as you moved into September, October? Did you feel the shift in seasons differently than you typically do? And as October became the first days of November, do you recall any ways in which the very challenging election season impacted you? Did it feel personal in some way, important to you personally in any way? Did you find yourself having conversations around the election with people in your life? Were there any emotions associated with that fall? The very specific nature of the fall of 2020. Coming back to right now, we'll take 3 breaths. Inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the nose, inhaling through the nose, separating the lips and exhaling slowly and silently through the mouth. Then inhaling through the nose and allowing yourself to exhale with a sigh. See if anything loosens, and when you're ready, Go ahead and open the eyes and find your way back to your journal. We're going to split this writing session with 2 prompts. And the first is to start with what we were just remembering. So take a few minutes to start by journaling about September and October, that first start of November. Were there events, memories, shifts that stand out to you? Take a couple of minutes now to just write down everything that comes to mind when you think about the fall of 2020. And now, as you continue to write about the shift into the fall and what that felt like for you, take the next couple of minutes now to free write about the shift from the fall into the holiday season. What did it feel like for you? In what ways was the holiday season different? How did you experience the end of November and the month of December? Take a few minutes now to free write any and everything that comes to mind as you think about the last 2 months of 2020. And taking about another minute and a half now to write about the tail end of 2020. And beginning to draw that prompt to a close by completing any words or phrases that you're on, any sketches, ideas, knowing that these are all a bit like a trail of breadcrumbs that you can come back to at any time. When you're ready, setting the journal aside and dropping in again, coming back to your home that is your body and your breath in the present moment. And finding the breath again. Where is it? And where do you feel it? And what is the quality of your breath right now? Its many facets. How is this breath different than the other breaths you witnessed? How is the next breath different than the last? And now that you've come in deeply, spiraling into the attention of the breath, now go ahead and let the attention expand just a little to identify any sensations elsewhere in the body. Maybe the residual effects of your writings, your thoughts and emotions. Finding any place in the body right now that feels any notable sensation, tightness or warmth. Let's take a deep breath, inhaling to identify that place or those places, and exhaling with a sigh. See if they loosen up or find any sense of ease. Letting the breath breathe itself now, we'll go back just a little bit, not too long ago, to the start of this year. We began our exploration by thinking about New Year 2020. How was this most recent New Year's Eve different for you? What were your thoughts and emotions as you prepared to enter 2021? Did it feel more like you were saying goodbye to 2022? I'm sorry, to 2020? And which side of that coin felt more true to you? Or did it feel like a continuation of the same thing? In what ways did starting this year feel different than other beginnings of new years, new calendar years for you? Were there activities, things you ritually do that you didn't do this year, or that you made sure to do this year? Did you find yourself thinking about the year ahead or not? And as the days began to tick and tick and tick away into 2021, we didn't get very far before the jarring incident of January 6th. Noticing if anything comes up for you as you remember that day. If there were any conversations that you had with others. Did it shift your ideas of what was to come? How did you feel as the weeks approached Inauguration Day? Did it feel different than any other inauguration to you? Did you feel like it impacted you? Did it feel personal or not? And as the days continued to tick and tick and tick by, and we moved into February, how did this year's Black History Month feel after the year that we had? After the protests for Black lives from last spring and through last summer? Did February feel any different to you this year than other years? And were there other events, things that stood out to you from January or February in your personal life or in the world? Anything that is coming up for you now? And as the days ticked and ticked by, we arrived here, right now. At the bottom of your next exhale, sipping the breath in through the nose, slow and steady. Exhaling completely and fully through the nose. Inhaling again through the nose, then separating the lips and allowing the breath to silently escape through the mouth. Once more, inhaling through the nose, and this time with full freedom, exhaling with a sigh. Coming back to this moment, here we are. When you're ready, maybe feeling your body in the seat, in the chair, on the cushion, on the bed, and then fluttering your eyes open and finding your way to the journal and just taking a couple of minutes to write about the start of 2021. And what jumps out at you so far for this year? I'm just taking a couple of minutes now here to write about any and everything that comes to mind. taking about another minute or so to jot down anything that comes to mind as you think about this year so far. And finishing up whatever words or phrases that you're on right now, and getting ready to set your journal to the side. We have just a couple more sits together. And this one's a good one. So when you're ready, let's settle in, because now that we've taken this journey through the year, let's take a moment now to breathe where we are. Feel the breath here bringing us back to the present. Feel the points of contact between yourself and your support. And as you think about, acknowledge this physical sense of support, let's shift our attention now, our memory, our hearts and minds, to the other kinds of support that we have been granted. This unprecedented year has given us so many ways to shift our relationships to other people, our sense of community. What have been some of the ways that you have been keeping in touch with those whom you've loved since before this pandemic? And what are the new people that have become part of your life over this last year? If you went through a period of isolation, do you remember the first time you'd had a hug in a long time? Maybe you're still waiting for that opportunity. Who is the person that you shared that first hug with? Who is the first person you want to hug next? How did you celebrate your own COVID birthday? How did you celebrate that of those closest to you? And now I invite you to bring to mind a specific person or community or entity or being that may not be human at all. Someone or something whose care and love supported you in this time. See them clearly in your mind's eye now, and give yourself permission to let your peripheral vision include your physical body so that you can feel the sense in your body of their presence or their love and warmth, your love and warmth and appreciation for them. And we'll take just a couple of minutes to offer them metta, loving kindness, seeing your beloved in your mind's eye, or imagining the sensation of holding their hand, seeing their smile. Perhaps envisioning yourself saying to them, "May you be safe from inner and outer harm." Picture their radiant smile, receiving your hope and wish for their safety. And perhaps now saying, "May you be healthy in mind, body, and soul." And seeing their radiant smile, receiving your love and well wishes for their health. Now perhaps offering them the wish of happiness, saying, "May you be happy each and every day." And seeing their radiant smile as they receive your wishes of happiness. And finally, perhaps offering them the phrase, "May you live with ease." And seeing their radiant smile, reflecting the ease and peace that you wish for them. Taking a moment now to allow your loved one, your dear one's image to release, bringing your attention back to your physical body here in this space. We'll take 3 breaths together. The bottom of your next exhale, taking that slow, deep breath in through the nose and exhaling slowly through the nose. Second breath in through the nose. And a slow, controlled, silent breath out through the mouth. Another inhale through the nose, and this time a free sigh as you exhale and find some ease, and maybe rubbing your hands on your legs or palms together to bring yourself back into the present. And when you're ready, I invite you to flutter your eyes open and find your way back to your journal for our last bit of writing together today. And starting quite simply with all that came up for you as you thought about the beings that loved you through this last year. So take a few minutes now to write down all that comes to mind when you think of them. before you set your journal aside, the last prompt I'd like to offer is, what does resilience mean to you? You are here. You've survived an unprecedented year. What does that mean for you? In the most personal and uniquely yours kind of way. Take a few minutes now to write about that. So finishing up the words or phrases that you're on now. And in a moment, those of us who are here live are going to have a few minutes to call our voices into this space. I'll pause the recording. And those of you who are watching the recording, the invitation is instead to take some time now to read all that you've written. So you can pause the recording and unpause once you've taken about 10 minutes to do that. Okay, so we finished the journaling part for this workshop, but there's one final meditation. And this one is actually going to be a mantra meditation. But rather than me giving you a mantra or asking you to choose one, I'm going to play a song. And it's from an a cappella group that I love called A Beautiful Chorus. And this particular song is called I Am Enough. And as you hear it, allow the words to resonate with you, the sounds to resonate, and just literally like the physical act of a resonance See where you find the vibrations in your body, maybe repeating the words, maybe just allowing them to wash over you. And really giving the opportunity for this mantra meditation to serve as a seal to the practice, to serve as a transition from our recollections of this past year. Plus, we started with the new year of 2020, and as a metta offering to yourself for what comes next. So, coming back into your seat and finding your way one more time into the home that is your own body. Beginning with the breath, noting where it is most obvious right now after speaking or rereading your own words. Noticing the quality of the breath right now, if it feels most obvious someplace different than it did at other points throughout this workshop. Noticing if the depth or speed, sense of constraint or freedom have shifted in any way. And then allowing your peripheral inner vision to expand to locate once more residual sensations in the body that might be evidence of thoughts or emotions that you're still holding on to after reading and writing and remembering. Take a deep breath into those places and exhale with a sigh and see if you can find a little ease.
I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough.
And feeling yourself here in this space, in this time, right now. Finding your way back to your breath. Sensing yourself supported by the seat that you've chosen. Knowing it is 100% true that you have survived, that you have proven that you are enough. Finding the bravery to see yourself, enjoy, and love. Noticing what echoes through your body as you hear those words and as you feel your emotions respond to them. Whether it feels like an affirmation or a challenge, noticing where in your body those emotions created sensation. Take a deep breath into them. Exhale with a sigh. And let's take that trio of breaths one last time together. Inhaling slow and steady through the nose. Exhaling completely through the nose. Inhaling again, slow and steady through the nose. Separating the lips and allowing the breath to escape through the mouth silently. And taking one last inhale together. And exhaling with a free and complete sigh. And see what else is released. And maybe tilting your head down a little so that when you're ready to flutter your eyes open, you do so first by taking in the floor, your legs, or whatever is immediately beneath you, and taking your time to allow your peripheral vision to begin to include everything else that is around you in space. Maybe gently moving the head side to side as you take in the rest of your room. Maybe even noticing some things you'd forgotten. And only eventually, if and when you're ready, finding your way back to the screen. Thank you so much for sharing this journey with me and review this unprecedented year. My name is Selena. Be well.